Police explored what few leads they had. Ed Gein was never questioned. No one considered him a suspect.
Welcome to Watch Mojo. And today, we're disputing myths and looking at obscure details that shaped the true story of one of America's most notorious killers, Ed Gein.
Don't mean nothing by it. Just wanted to welcome her to town is all.
Not officially a serial killer. The so-called Butcher of Plainfield inspired some of the most twisted ideas about serial killers long before the term was coined.
When the police first broke into Gein's house and discovered this crazy mass of body parts, their first assumption was Gein was a serial killer.
When it was, the criteria describes someone who is confirmed to have committed at least 3 murders. Ed Gein was convicted of murdering hardware store owner Bernice Warden and confessed to also killing bar owner Mary Hogan.
He freely confessed to the murders of Bernice Warden and Mary Hogan.
Thus, he did not meet the legal definition of a serial killer until the FBI lowered the victim count threshold to 2 in 2008. Even then, criminology generally upholds the 3-victim rule. Gein has in fact been linked to many more possible homicides, but with only 2 victims confirmed. The popular term for him is just speculation.
We think of Gein as this notorious American serial murderer, but in many ways he doesn't really fit that profile.
A community man. Gein had a very sheltered and troubled youth, but was a distinct personality around the tight-knit town of Plainfield, Wisconsin. His schoolmates recalled him having an eccentric sense of humor that he often kept to himself.
And he was considered to be a bit of an oddball. He was quite a loner, and he enjoyed quite solitary pursuits.
He would have random laughing fits over thoughts of jokes he wouldn't share. Gein became more social after the loss of his family, working as a handyman and a babysitter.
She was a little girl, and she remembers going over to his house, and he would serve soup and everything. Well, it turned out the soup bowls were the skulls of many of his victims.
His reputation as a meek but friendly neighbor runs counter to the popular assumption that he spent his whole life in some form of isolation. But given his disturbing quirks and the fates of some associates, there are always signs of a neighbor being less friendly than his presentation.
Yeah, I'd see him around town, and then he was always a friendly person, quiet, friendly, usually had a joke to tell.
Adeline Watkins.
Eddie?
Not even the aforementioned tight-knit community knew much about Gein's love life. Following his arrest in 1957, the Minneapolis Tribune published a piece on 50-year-old Adeline Watkins and a 20-year romance with Gein. She later clarified to the Stevens Point Journal that she only knew the man for that long. The supposed couple dated for about 7 months, breaking up in '54, following a declined proposal.
You sure are a one, Mr. Gein.
Statements from other community members contradict this by describing Gein as an introverted bachelor. It's speculated that Watkins exaggerated the nature of a platonic friendship for attention. Whether Gein ever got that close with anyone, it's clear that nobody understood the darker qualities of this sweet, polite man.
Eddie Gein was at one time an acquaintance of mine.
Home life. Edward Theodore Gein was the second son of George and Augusta. His father, a laborer and one-time grocery owner, drank heavily and abused his family. 4 years after George's death, his elder son Henry died under mysterious circumstances.
Death would hit the Gein family once again, but this time in more suspicious circumstances, after a brush fire on their farmland got out of control.
Ed's relationship with his mother is much more infamous, but some details seem hard to believe. Augusta was oppressively religious and forbade Ed from associating with girls. As close as he became with his mother, her death in 1945 ostensibly triggered his breakdown.
Because his mother was so domineering, I think she really did stunt his development, and he almost got stuck at a kind of teenage adolescent phase in his life.
He even targeted women who resembled Augusta to make a woman's suit for himself. Robert Bloch couldn't have made up something that disturbing, but modeled Norman Bates's parental issues more closely after Gein's than we'd care to know.
Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
Influences. The most influential killers often get their ideas from somewhere else. After his mother's death, Ed Gein began collecting macabre newspaper clippings, artifacts, and literature. Adeline Watkins claimed that she bonded with him over their mutual interest in true crime stories. Gein most notably favored Nazi materials, likely leading to an interest in Ilse Koch.
And he developed a particular interest in Ilse Koch, who worked at one of the Nazi concentration camps and collected patches of skin.
The so-called Witch of Buchenwald was the wife of a concentration camp commandant and is believed to have collected prisoners' skin to make lampshades. The parallels with Gein's methods are undeniable. Their variations and twisted creativity suggest that the Butcher of Plainfield drew heavily on horrendous history. Of course, his acting on these influences is entirely his responsibility.
Wie heißt du, Soldat? Wer ist dein Vorgesetzter? Hä?
Yeah.
M.O. myths. Ed Gein's crimes were heinous enough without urban legends. Rumors of cannibalism and certain other desecrations of bodies go all the way back to his arrest. While admitting to collecting and tanning dead bodies, Gein explicitly denied sexual activity on the grounds that he was repulsed by the smell. The common misconception resurged after the release of the Texas Chain Saw Massacre, along with the myth that Leatherface's inspiration used a chainsaw. He didn't even use a knife, as Psycho suggested. Both of Gein's confirmed victims were killed by gunshot. It's unlikely that he was much more sadistic than that if he committed other murders, but the unconfirmed crimes are also key to understanding this subject.
Grown into a notorious figure in American folklore, a killer of almost mythic proportions.
Suspected victims. It's popularly speculated that Gein's first victim was his brother, Henry, who officially died of asphyxiation during a fire in 1944. Skeptics note bruises on Henry's head and Ed's intensifying attachment to their mother.
Anyway, the official verdict of the medical examiner was that Henry had died of a heart attack while fighting this fire and had injured his head.
Gein was also cleared of kidnapping teenager Evelyn Hartley while visiting her town in 1953. There's less attention paid to other missing persons like 8-year-old Georgia Weckler and hunters Raymond Burgess and Victor Travis. Gein also did chores for the wife of neighbor James Walsh after his disappearance. True crime enthusiasts think these unsolved cases could point to Gein as a prolific serial killer, despite psychiatric assessments that he only targeted women who resembled his mother. Of course, the at least 9 cadavers found in Gein's home were also victims.
Shouldn't be watching this.
What became of Gein's property? The farmhouse to which Ed Gein was so twistedly attached is as much a part of his legacy as his acts. But not many know the dramatic fates of this site of his downfall or the 1949 Ford sedan he used in his crimes. 4 months after Gein's conviction, his property was set for auction when a fire of mysterious origin destroyed the house.
A mysterious fire broke out one morning in Gein's farmhouse and completely obliterated it before it can be turned into a kind of tourist attraction.
The fire chief who allowed this to happen was the son of Bernice Warden. Carnival owner Bunny Gibbons then claimed fame by buying Gein's sedan for a showcase. The Ed Gein Ghoul car was perhaps the first of many capitalizations on the killer's legacy for entertainment. No one knows what ultimately became of the car itself.
Place your bids on the Ghoul car.
Forgotten adaptations. In 1959, Robert Bloch published a novel about a mild-mannered motel owner who dresses as his dead mother to commit murder. Psycho was quickly adapted into one of the most significant horror films ever, notably influencing John Carpenter's Halloween, the Texas Chain Saw Massacre, and The Silence of the Lambs. But Ed Gein has inspired many more low-profile films, including 3 on a Meat Hook, Deranged, and Ed Gein, the Musical.
Of my demented things.
Werner Herzog and Errol Morris collaborated on an ultimately unproduced biopic. And Slayer, Blind Melon, Cannibal Corpse, and Volbeat all have songs about Gein. The scale of the killer's direct pop culture impact alone is greater than anyone can keep up with. The controversy surrounding this is just as substantial. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Returned to the scene of the crime. Ed Gein died of cancer in 1984 at age 77. He was buried beside his family at Plainfield Cemetery, which he claimed to have visited around 40 times to rob graves. The irony continued with visitors vandalizing and taking pieces of his headstone until it was stolen entirely in 2000.
In the year 2000, somebody was found to be selling parts of the gravestone that had been erected at Ed Gein's grave.
It was later recovered and stored away to avoid further damage.
It was eventually recovered and is currently being kept in storage at the Washara County Sheriff's Department.
Gein's unmarked final resting place can be easily spotted between those of brother Henry and mother Augusta. Other than this impact on pop culture, the only artifacts of his existence that haven't been lost are his twisted upholstery. As impossible as it can be to know enough facts to define someone's life, truth and speculation are getting hard to define with Gein.
Only a mother could love you.
What details about Ed Gein and other killers haunt you? Testify in the comments below.